10 years, 10 years ago, I found myself in a hospital bed, shivering, lonely, and afraid. And I was afraid because this was now the third time in less than a year that I was in the exact same place, having come out of an intensive care unit with a massive blood clot in my leg. Now, twice before, the clot had traveled to my lungs, and these are pulmonary emboli, which are life-threatening in and of themselves. And so now I had a filter, midway so that the clot couldn't go travel to my lungs anymore. But what happened the third time was I developed this massive clot that filled my entire left leg all the way up my waist. And they cleared it out. The doctors got me in the intensive care unit. They cleared it out and everything was fine, or at least everything should have been fine, because now I was back on the floor and it was late at night. And I was laying there and everything was fine, except it wasn't. I was starting to feel a little dizzy. I was starting to feel like I was slipping away. And I felt this and decided to sit up. And I couldn't sit up. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't even find the nurse's bell, couldn't ring the bell to call the nurses in. And I just felt myself fading away. And the next thing that I knew, there was all of this rushing coming into the room, and nurses were patting me down and putting in a new IV and starting all of these medications. And vaguely off in the corner, I saw my husband sitting there. And it wasn't until the next day that I found out what had actually happened. I had developed sepsis. That's a full body raging infection from an infected IV. And he had come to visit me that night and found me sitting up in the bed with this big grin on my face, smiling, didn't even know who he was. I was that far gone. So he had the presence of mind to call the nurses, to bring them into the room, and they were the ones who got me back quickly. Now, if he hadn't been there, if he hadn't come to visit me that night, which was really pretty late, I don't think I'd be standing here telling you this story today. Now, this should be enough of a wake-up call, right? The first time, the second time, the third time when I almost didn't make it out of the intensive care unit. But you know what? The things that got me there were still going on. I was still pushing myself. As a matter of fact, I was still in plastic surgery at the time. And instead of taking the rest that my body needed, I actually brought a couch, put it in the exam room next to my main exam room, and after I saw a patient, I would hobble back into the couch and lay down until my next patient came. I didn't even have enough energy to walk down the hallway to my regular office. That's the way I was pushing myself. And I wonder, does that sound like something that some of you are doing as well? Pushing yourself beyond your limits because everyone's told you that this is what you need to do. This is what you need to be. Now, now you're probably laughing to yourself saying, you're a doctor, you should know better. But you know what? I didn't. It wasn't until I developed a full body rash, which was the straw that broke the camel's back, that I really decided to make that change. So I initially went to regular physicians and they put me on high dose steroids to try to cover up that rash. And it should have worked, except it didn't. Not only didn't it work, it was making me really dizzy. I was bouncing into walls as I was walking down the hallway. Now that is not a good look for a plastic surgeon. So I knew I needed to do something else, and I kept searching, and what I found was lifestyle medicine. So instead of finding a medication or something, a pill, a potion, a lotion to cover up the symptoms, I decided I needed to figure out what was causing the symptoms in the first place. In other words, finding the root cause of that rash. And when I did, what it was for me was eggs. Believe it or not. Now, I love eggs, and I still do. And I had eaten them for years, for decades, sometimes multiple times a day. And although eggs are usually very healthy, for me at this time, I had developed a sensitivity to them. So every time I ate an egg, my body went into alarm, and it was the way it showed that alarm was through this full body rash. So when I stopped eating the eggs, guess what? 2 weeks, rash was totally gone. Now that made me start thinking, maybe what I need to do is stop covering things up with medications, like I said, and the pills and the potions, and figure out long-term what to do, what was best for my body. And that's what we do in Premier Wellness today. So it was all about eating elite, eating the right foods for you at this time of your life. So even something like eggs with me that you used to love and used to be able to eat, it may not be right for you right now. And that inflammation may be causing you joint pain or rashes or sometimes even autoimmune conditions. It's about moving more throughout your day. So rather than sitting at a desk all day or maybe going to the gym a couple of times a week and then sitting the rest of the week, you want to move throughout your day so that you're continuing to have that movement and bringing blood flow to all of your muscles. You want to live wisely. And what that is reducing those stress levels. It's balancing your hormones. It's getting the sleep that you actually need. And then finally, it's loving divinely. Now with me, it was loving myself enough to make those changes that I needed to make. And it may be like that for you as well. But it's bringing that love that you now have for yourself and bringing it out into the world, and then finally, divinely. And when you do those four things, eating elite, moving more, living wisely, loving divinely, bringing them all into your life on a consistent basis because now you love yourself, then you can have the extraordinarily vibrant life that you want and you deserve.